I have been feeling really skinny, and not in a I feel really skinny kind of way, but in a I feel super flat kind of way. And I know that it is because I've been sick for like a month, but because I have been sick for a month, I've been doing a lot of thinking. Because to me, whenever I'm sick, nothing hits the same as a little bit of confirmation bias. So it's how I basically have gone through uni. So I come up with a thesis, and then I love to look through studies to find evidence that support my way of thinking. And so one of the things that I have always wanted to test, but I've never done before, is something that goes kind of against everything that I always say, but it is still something that I feel like might have a bit of truth to it. And it's just something that I really want to test myself, because we love a study where n equals 1. And so this is what I was thinking. What happens if you structure your week in such a way that you would have 3 major glute-focused leg days, but instead of just doing a full recovery in between, I would fill up 3 other days with just some isolation work. So for the 3 main glute days, I would emphasize the areas of the glutes differently. So for example, for day A, I would focus on my upper glutes, and then for day B, I would focus on the middle part, and then for day C, I would focus mainly on the lower part. And then with the isolation work, focus on some high rep work, nothing too fatiguing for my nervous system or for my body, but just a little bit of stimulation, just to see how my body would respond to it. Before I got sick, I was doing the low volume training program, and I am responding really well to a low volume training program. And so that is also what I wanted to stick with for this split. So my total volume for my glutes wouldn't be crazy, but it's just that my frequency is extremely high. But then again, your glutes are also really big, and they consist of 3 different heads. And so emphasizing each area of the glutes on different days might even allow them to recover fully before that area is trained again, if you know what I mean. But as I said, I love a bit of a confirmation bias. And so I have been doing some research, trying to find studies that did this same approach for different muscle groups. And I found some evidence, and that was enough for me to think, okay, this is going to be my new glute protocol for the next 30 days. Today is day 1, which means that I'm going to measure my glutes. I've looked into doing a DEXA scan, but unfortunately where I live, you can only get DEXA scans through your GP, and only if your body weight is high enough where they would actually give you the, I don't know what it's called, like the paper where the GP says that you should get the scan. So I can't do an actual DEXA scan, but obviously I can take measurements and just see what my glutes measure at, and then we'll see after 30 days if it is a significant change. And so I spent the entire morning writing a beast of a program. And I'm not just training glutes, by the way. I will train every other muscle group as well, but it is a glute focused program. So I first created the schedule for my glutes, and then I would fill it out with all the other things that I want to train. Because as you know, I believe in a balanced training program. I think having physique-based goals is fun, but I also don't want to increase the risk of getting injuries. I've never had an injury before in my training career, and I really want to keep it that way. So in short, I wrote a beast of a program, in theory, in my own theory. And I'm going to run it for the next 30 days. It is called the glute protocol. And over the next 30 days, I'll have 6 workout days per week, 1 rest day. And those 6 workout days, I have my laptop here with my program. Over these 6 workout days, I'll have 3 main leg days where I'm focusing on the compounds, I'm focusing on the heavy lifts, on overloading, all the things that we would normally do. I am sticking to a somewhat lower volume program, and I focus on different areas of the glutes, which with each day that I'm training. And then those heavy days will be alternated with isolation work. And those isolation days are short. It's just 2 exercises per day, but I will mainly be focusing on the upper part of my glutes with those isolation exercises. Isolation will be in the little bit of the higher rep range for me. Think 10 to 12 or 12 to 15, just to get that pump going, just to get a bit of stimulation to the muscles. It's not the only thing that I'm training. I have a full leg day. I also do upper body days. I have a push day, a pull day, and a full upper day planned on those isolation days too. And I'm going to run it for the next 30 days. My goal isn't to intentionally gain weight, so I'm not also, bulking next to it or anything. I will be eating good. I will be making sure that I hit my protein, all the standard things. But I'm really trying to focus on seeing if I can actually build some muscle instead of just gaining fat. And today equals day 1, so let's do our measurements. I think that will be a good starting point. And then after we've done the measurements, we're going to get started with the front foot elevated Smith machine split squat, which I love. So we're doing some measurements for day 1. I am wearing joggers, but I'm pulling it a bit more tightly so that I get a bit of the fabric out of the way. And then when I'm doing my measurements, it hits me at, let's see, this is 94 centimeters and a half. So let's try that again. I usually do 3 measurements and then I take the average. This would be, let's see, 95. And then one more would place me at 95 again. So let's say that we're at 95 for our starting measurements. Day 1, let's start with the warm-up. I'm going to work through some hip, glute and spine mobility at the beginning of my leg session. And so I'm starting with a side-lying hip abduction. I always make sure that my shoulder is stacked above my elbow, that my leg is at about a 90 degrees angle, and then I really focus on squeezing my bottom glute here to lift myself up. This is basically an abduction, so if you were to do a seated hip abduction, you would do a similar movement pattern, and it's just great to get some activation going and to warm up your glutes. I'm just doing probably about 8 to 10 reps. Nothing too fatiguing, but just to make sure that I'm prepping my body. And then I'm doing the same thing on the other side. Four, 5, 6. And you want to go through the full range of motion here. 8, 9, 10. Next up is a personal favorite, also one that I hate, which is the Copenhagen plank. So I'm elevating my top leg. I'm just putting my foot on the bench, and then I'm squeezing my inner thigh and my core to lift my hips up until I form a straight line if I can. Again, shoulder is stacked above my elbow, and then my bottom leg, I can do a knee in, which is basically where I extend my leg and then I pull my knee towards my belly button or towards my chest, or I'm holding it here and I can do some dips, which is what I want to do today since I'm doing a leg day. Just doing 6, 4, 5, 6. This exercise is killing. Next up is a weighted hip shift. I am in a split stance. I have a kettlebell. This one is quite heavy. Ideally, I would want to grab one which is a little bit lighter. This one is 12 kgs. And then I'm placing it on my shoulder, and then I'm gently moving forward and really feeling that stretch in my hip. I'm not staying here just for a second. because we're not doing any static stretches. We're just doing dynamic work here. So I'm just going to move through 6 to 8, starting with my weaker side first, and then I match to work with my stronger side. But they're feeling quite good, so I think I'm gonna go for 8. I'm focusing on warming up my shoulders for a bit, so I'm grabbing a band and I'm going to do some dislocations. The goal is not to rush through the reps as quickly as you can, but the goal is to make sure that you really go to the end of the range of motion. So I'm really extending my arms all the way towards the ceiling while pulling this band apart. Make these circles as big as I can. I do a couple of reps and then I stop at about chest height and then I transition into banded pull aparts. The banded pull aparts are more specifically for the back of your shoulders. I really feel them in my rear delts, which is always nice. Even though we're doing a leg day, it's always nice to get your shoulders warmed up because it's just very easy to get them injured, especially since with most movements they are involved. So we want to spend some extra time on them. So I would stop at about chest height and then focus on pulling the band apart by bringing my hands and my elbows outwards. And as you can see, I keep a slight bend at my elbows because I really want to make sure that I pull it by using my rear delts and not necessarily by using my arms. Okay, perfect. So then the only thing that I want to do is to focus on my spine for a bit. Going to do 2 exercises to warm up my spine. The first one is the cat cow. So I'm coming down on all fours. I would focus on lifting my chest and dropping my belly. I would inhale, and then as I exhale, I'm rounding my spine and I'm pulling my belly button in. If you want to, you can add some movement to this exercise. And then I'm just going to work through a couple of reps. And then next, I'm going to do some Jefferson curls, which are a bit more advanced. So if you have any issues with your back or you had any issues with your back in the past, then I would stay away from that exercise. But the cat cow is a safer variation, just to get some movement into your spine and to make sure that you stay flexible. Okay, beautiful. So for the Jefferson curl, I'm going to elevate myself by using this step. Let me adjust. For the Jefferson curl, I am elevating myself. I am too elevated probably, but we'll see. And then I am going to go vertebrae for vertebrae and really focusing on slowly bending down by actually curling my spine instead of keeping a straight spine. Really feel that stretch. And then I would pull myself up in exactly the same way. I don't know if you can see it better if I turn sideways, but I really try to go vertebrae for vertebrae until I bend all the way down, and then I come up in exactly the same way. Again, this is a very advanced exercise. I go really slow and really controlled, and if anything ever feels off, then I would stop immediately. I'm going to grab my laptop to see what we have on today's agenda for the glute protocol, okay? We have a pretty intense day, if I do say so myself. We are starting with the front foot elevated Smith machine split squat. We do hip thrust, hyperextension, leg extension, hamstring curl, and calf raises. Okay, 2 sets, 6 to 8 reps. Perfect. Going to do the Smith machine split squat with my front foot being elevated. So generally speaking, when it comes to hypertrophy or muscle building, you would want to get the deepest stretch possible in the muscle that you are targeting, because then you're really working it through the entire range of motion. And so doing a front foot elevated split squat instead of a regular split squat, it allows me to get that deeper stretch into the glute of my working leg, as you can see here, because I can go all the way down before the knee of my non-working leg actually hits the ground, and therefore elevating your front foot is a really good way to make this exercise even better for hitting your glutes. I have a pretty wide stance, and I make sure that I have a bit of a forward lean with my upper body, again, just to make sure that I have that deep stretch in my glute, and I'm starting with my weaker side first. This is the part of the workout that I dislike the most, which is the hip thrust. But it is a great exercise for the glutes, so we are going to include it, especially because this exercise is the most challenging for the glutes when they're at the shortened position or all the way locked out at the top, which is great because we just did an exercise that was the hardest for the glutes when they were at the lengthened position, which was at the bottom of the rep of the front foot elevated split squat in the split machine. Let's do some reps. I'm actually using a bench this time instead of just a step to elevate myself. Bench gives a bit of a greater range of motion, but I find it a little bit too high for my shoulder blades, so I kind of keep going back and forth. It is a bit more stable though than the step, even though I'm not going too heavy because my glutes are already quite tired from the exercise that I did before. The goal is 8 to 10 reps, so let's see. Going to do some hyperextensions. If you want to work your erectors and target your lower back, you would have a neutral spine with this exercise, which would kind of look like this. So now I'm really using my lower back to pull my upper body up. But instead, today I want to focus more on my glutes and my hamstrings, and I would perform a hinge. So as you would do with an RDL, you would focus on almost bringing your hips back, and then focus on squeezing your glutes and your hamstrings. And as you can see, by doing that, I naturally have somewhat of a forward bend with my upper body. And that is just to make sure that I don't actually use my lower back to bring myself up, but instead I'm focusing on the glutes and the hamstrings. So I'm grabbing a plate, I'm holding it towards my chest, and then I focus on feeling that deep stretch in the glutes, in the hamstrings, and then squeezing them to bring myself up. That was the glute focus portion of this lift. I'm going to do some leg extension, leg curls, and calf raises, just 1 or 2 sets to make sure that I also train my hamstrings, my quads, and my calves, because as I said, I don't just want to train my glutes, I just mainly want to focus on my glutes with this project. So that is what I'm going to do next, and then I'm going to make some food, because obviously food is really important. We can train as hard as we want to, but if we don't have proper nutrition, there is no fuel for us to rebuild anything. If you want to focus on bringing up all the heads of your quads, then the leg extension is a great exercise to do so, especially when you put the seat back, so you can lean back and get that deep, deep stretch going on in your quads. I would grab the handles and make sure that I hold them as tightly as possible to create that tension in my upper body, and then I am firing up my quads to bring the weight up. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I think that having big, juicy glutes looks great, but especially if you have the hamstrings to support it. And I have been doing my RDLs, I have been doing my hip hinges, my hyperextensions, anything to really stretch and lengthen the hamstrings, but now I also want to do an exercise that actually contracts them, or that's hardest at the shortened position, such as the seated hamstring curls. I'm putting the seat all the way forward. So I'm actually placing the seat forward and then focus on squeezing my hamstrings.